Hello everyone, my name is Sam Callan and I am one of the candidates for the Services Club Coaching Education position at US Master Swimming, and I was sent these questions by Bill Brunner to I guess let you guys learn a little bit more about me, and rather than typing them out I decided to do a little recorded presentation here. So sit back with your favorite beverage and hope you learn a little bit about me and like what you hear. So the first question deals with a memorable volunteer experience, and I struggle with this a little bit because the first one that came to mind I listed there, volunteering at a beer festival here in Colorado Springs. But as I thought more about it, it was memorable, it was fun. Got to meet a lot of people, see a lot of old friends, that sort of thing. But there really weren't a lot of challenges, and at the end of the day, yeah, it was a fun thing to do. But I also remember that an experience I had when I worked in Wisconsin and working at a soup kitchen around Thanksgiving time, and actually did this for 3 years, but the first year by far the most memorable. And basically brought in a bunch of college students. I was a college administrator, brought in some college students, and we organized the kitchen. We were given a menu and the instructions on how to prepare everything, but basically we were handed that and then told, okay, well, y'all got to be ready in 2 hours. And I got there thinking we would have somebody there to help us more than we did. So the challenges immediately were, okay, I have this recipe now, pretty easy to follow, but it's also more food than I've ever cooked in my life. And I've got a bunch of college students who I learned not a lot of them had been involved in helping prepare meals at home, and so figuring out who could do what was the first challenge. There were 18, 19-year-old college students, so keeping them on task was quite a challenge as well. And we struggled a little bit early on, and then we got into a flow, got into a rhythm, and people started really getting used to what they were doing. I had got the more experienced people in an area to help the folks who had never chopped vegetables or whatever it might have been. And we got rolling, and we served the meal on time. But what made it really memorable, in addition to kind of the laughs and the fun we had in the kitchen once we got going, was I did finally sneak out and go out to where the folks were being served, and overheard a conversation with the mom was having with one of the soup kitchen volunteers about how they really hadn't had a meal like this in a while, and she was concerned because they were recently homeless because of a home situation, and that she was afraid that kids weren't going to have a Thanksgiving this time around because there was no family involved, and just this really very sad story. And it was heartwarming that I knew that I could be a part of helping them have a little bit of a Thanksgiving, a little bit of break from the rough time that they were going through. So as I thought on it, that was my most memorable. And I've done soup kitchen stuff before, but I think it's like with a lot of things, that first time you do something is really the most memorable and the most special. Second question dealt with learning methods and those deliveries. And I have delivered coaching clinics in a variety of ways, or information on coaching clinics, clinics and seminars, webinars, played around with podcasting some, but nothing really official with that, just kind of to see what that technology might be used for. And I've come to the conclusion, both from experience and kind of reading about the online classes that are being taught at universities, that really the in-person clinic or seminar or workshop is really the ideal situation to me, because it allows the presenter to know and to get a feel for what their audience is going through. As a presenter, you can look out and realize, I think I've lost my audience. They're getting blank looks on their face, like they've never heard this terminology. One example of that was, I remember teaching a physiology section of the coaching clinic at USA Cycling, and I quickly realized, oh my gosh, I have a group here that really has no background in this. So we did a quick survey just to verify, and sure enough, had every person under the sun except people who had had any kind of biology or anything like that, or maybe just an introductory biology in college. And so really had to back off. And I think I know that if I had been doing that, delivering it online or in a recorded fashion, I'm not sure how much of that information was stuck with people, because it would have been over their head at what I thought was a pretty basic level. So I think it allows for personalization of materials. You can also hit the 3 primary learning modes. The auditory folks who are fine just listening to lectures, taking notes, they get it. You can show graphs and charts and things for the more visual people who need that, who may even paint that picture in their mind just to make sure that they're right. And then hopefully you can throw in some experiential stuff, maybe small group things, or have them up and doing activities. We've done that before with some strength training things, fitness sort of things. We actually have the people do it, and that drives it home obviously for a handful of people. And when you're online, it's harder to do that. It's pretty much going to be auditory or visual, and even some of that can be really hard. I also think there's some other good reasons to have this for an organization, and that is building a community amongst the coaches and building a connection with those coaches between the people in the home office and the coaches who are out in the field. Too often there's a disconnect there, and the members don't feel comfortable in maybe reaching out when they want help because it's just a disembodied voice, much like I'm doing to you right now, that is delivering this information, and it's very one way and doesn't really allow for conversation and even fleshing out things with that. Another part of that is building the community within the coaching group. So you've got 15, 20 coaches in a room together and going through this. Hopefully some friendships are developed, or at least some acquaintances are developed where if they're having a problem, hey, it seemed like I remember hearing somebody at another club talk about having that same situation. I'll shoot them an email, I'll give them a call to see how they work through that. And so you build that network and support group for these coaches, because I think it's really good when you're involved in something, you find out that other people who have that interest too are as passionate as you are about that. So those are some reasons I think the in-person clinic and seminar is the superior way of delivering that. However, there's also reality, and while it's great to do that, you always run into the situation where a person can't attend because of a scheduling conflict or something else is going on, they just can't attend it. In which case, I think we need to provide information online, recorded. This just has to be in today's age. And I think some types of materials are very suitable. I can think back to at USA Cycling, we did a webinar every year on rules changes. And there's not really a lot of things that can be discussed, maybe some interpretation, that sort of thing, but my presenter was really good at giving case studies. Very, very good at doing it one way. Here's the new rule, here's how we're going to apply it, here's some situations that may come up. And maybe there can be some online discussion, obviously, if it's being done live with that. The great thing is it's recorded, so somebody who wasn't able to tune into live one can go back and watch it, and if they have a question, they can always send that in as well. I think it's good to have recorded information, whether it's video clips or a podcast, just a straight lecture, whatever it may be, for people to come back and reference later on. Oh, I remember that U.S. Masters Swimming course that was online, and here's how they talked about teaching this or giving a cue or something. Let me go back and see if I can find that, and they can hopefully find that pretty easily. So it serves as a good reference. And then the other reality is that it's fairly inexpensive to do most of the time. It's easily accessible to people. If we did a whole series of this at USA Cycling where we had the webinars and people were able to tune into the live one, we made them available as recordings, and they could do it anytime they wanted to, especially dealing across a large time zone and maybe even international folks we can reach out to at that point. And then the last one I put here is really written materials. Kind of standard, having a manual, something that somebody can take with them, maybe take out on the pool deck, and this could even be done electronically too. I don't know if you want to take your iPad on the pool deck, but you get what I mean. And it may be workouts. Here's some classic workouts, some classic warm-ups, some dynamic warm-up materials you can do where it's written down. Great, I got this, I can give it out. And maybe even that's available for them to give their athletes as well. So those are the modes of learning that as I've approached them over the years. The third question dealt with a partnership with another organization, like-minded, and I chose USA Triathlon a little bit because I know a little bit about USA Triathlon, and I think there's just very obvious overlays there between the two organizations, both not-for-profits, both looking at dealing with age group athletes primarily, but who are still competitive and sometimes very competitive folks, as it turns out. So But why other USA Triathlon is the membership overlap potential is high. I think we're very similar demographically in terms of probably the members, the master swimmers and master triathletes. I think the coaching membership overlap high is very potential. They have about 2,000 certified coaches, and it seems like it'd be a nice piggyback to have their coaches get our certification as well as going the other way too, which I'll talk about in a minute. So Master Swimming gets access to 100,000 plus of their members plus the 2,000 coaches, and we can get our word out to them about what we are and what we do and what is offered. It could be a great off-season thing for a triathlete who lives in, say, Colorado, and as beautiful as Colorado is much of the year, it can still get a little nippy to get outside and do races, especially bike races. So maybe it gives them a competitive outlet in the winter that allows them to maintain that fitness and that edge and that those competitive juices flowing, and maybe even scratch that itch of I got to be competitive all the time. Well, here's another option for you as well. USA Triathlon potentially gets access to coaches working with adults. I think also access to just our programs and our local swim clubs and membership they might want to try. So I see really in some ways, they could get a good bit out of this, as well as US Master Swimming getting access to their 100,000 plus members. Next question dealt with multitasking and organizing, and I'm going to take a contrarian view on this one a bit. My first thought on this is that I think the organization part of this can really help out with what often ends up being multitasking. I organize with a well-developed calendar of events. I like to plan, ideally I like to plan those 18 months out in a perfect world where I know that on the first weekend of August I'm going to be in Raleigh, North Carolina that weekend because we're going to do a swim school. I like for that information to be there so that members and coaches know and can plan well ahead of time of, rather than me going to Atlanta in 2 months, you guys are going to be here in Raleigh, I'll wait. And I can do that where I can save some money and sleep in my own bed and do that sort of thing. And I backdate things from there and putting in priorities about when deadlines are due, when are reports due, and things like that, so that I've got a heads up, a week or two or more out of I got something coming up, so that when I sit down and plan my weekly schedule, I know where I'm devoting time, and I typically do that on a time-sensitive basis. If something's coming up sooner than something else, that's the one I want to give the attention to at that time with that. So focusing on those blocks of time's priorities. And here's the contrarian view. I think multitasking is a good way to be inefficient. I think folks who think they're multitasking are really just hopping from one thing to another and aren't really giving their focus to an item to give it the 100%. Does that mean that there won't be times where an emergency pops up or something unforeseen comes, I've got to dump what I planned to do because something else came up? Of course not. Those things happen, and I think if you're organized, it actually makes it a little bit easier to take care of those things. But the idea of trying to type out my annual report about what my division did while I'm talking on the phone with a member trying to solve their problem, those two things, something is going to give there where I'm going to lose track of what the member was asking me or what we were discussing, or I'm going to lose my train of thought on the annual report or wherever it is I'm working on. I do like to set aside time, this kind of wild card time, where I'll come through and just do communication blocks where if the phone rings, I'll certainly pick it up. If it's something that's critical, it'll take care of. But I'm not a big fan of multitasking, and but I'm also flexible enough that, like I said, if something pops up, then I know I need to take care of it versus what I maybe had planned on it, and then get back to that as quickly as I can. Let's ask about relationships amongst the staff in the office. This is one of those that's really, to me, being in an office where people don't at least get along and share respect for one another is a real nightmare situation. And I certainly don't want to find myself in that situation, or being a cause of that situation would be even worse. So I think open communication, not letting things slide, particularly in a small office. I think about it where if you're interacting with, if there's only 5 or 6 people in your office and one person you're butting heads with, or for maybe it's nothing big, there's just something small there that's causing a problem, it can really be bad because there's only 5 or 6 of you in the office. So keeping those lines of communication open, doing the best you can to make sure that communications are clear, and when something is not clear, asking a clarifying question of, oh, I'm not clear on what you're wanting or what you're asking or what you were upset about or what got you bothered, and being straight and honest with people about it. You don't need to be brutal, just need to be assertive with it, and certainly sharing what's going on with that. I think another part that is really important to me is being aware of everybody's crunch times and knowing when those are. And sometimes it's just a case of, I'm not going to bother my boss with this problem right now because he's trying to get his annual report done. It can wait. It can wait 2 days. It's not anything that's pressing. Sometimes I get really wild ideas in the middle of the night, and I want to come in the first thing in the morning and bounce them off somebody, but maybe that's one of those where I just need to write it down to remind myself of it, and in 2 days I'm going to sit down and say, here's my idea with that, because I know that person's going through a crunch time. The other aspect of that too is being able to help those people out. What can I take off your plate, to give you a few hours where you can just concentrate on this. If it's a matter of, we got a big mailing going out, and if you have 6 people working on it, it's going to go twice as fast as if you have 3 people working on it. And the flip side of that is that I would hope that people would feel like they would be willing to help me out in those situations, whether I ask for it, or the ideal situation is other people just know there's a clinic coming up in a week. That means that Sam's packing boxes. I got 20 minutes. I need a break from whatever I'm doing. I'm gonna go help him stuff boxes, or pack up the boxes and ship them, or where it may be. Even if it's 20 minutes, that's still 20 minutes. That's really that I don't have to do something. I can give my time to something else, and maybe it gave you a little break. But to me, it also shows, hey, I really appreciate that you were cognizant of that and aware of that and willing to step in and help out with that. And the other one is, I kind of mentioned that I get crazy ideas from time to time, is innovate and risk take. I want a supportive environment in that regard. I want to support other people as they innovate and take a risk. And maybe it's just giving them feedback on, your idea sounds really great. Here's a couple of questions I have. Maybe my situation coming in new, I don't know all the history, so I'm going to ask questions out of ignorance and may give that person something to think about. And the flip side of that is, when I come up with what I call my crazy ideas, is sit, listen, hey, here's something to consider. If it's been tried before, maybe it just wasn't done like I'm thinking it was done, but certainly sharing that information with me of, here's what we tried, but you know what, here's why it didn't work, or here's why we think it didn't work. And your approach may be different, but keep that in mind. I really do want to grow problems, and I said when I talked to Bill the other day, I get kind of bored easily. And sometimes when I do that, that's when I become really creative, because it's like, well, if we tried this, it might be another way to deliver that program, or to meet our members' needs. And that's really fun for me. I like that creative side of it as well. So to wrap this up, just my experience, I've had experience in providing coaching education in a sport that I had a little bit of a background in, but not a ton of a background in, to be honest with you. I wasn't a competitive cyclist, and I certainly had ridden and done a bike race here and there, mountain bike race, but I didn't have real in-depth knowledge. I was able to deliver, I think, high-quality coaching education to the coaches who came through our program as it grew. I have experience in developing community of coaches through clinics and through online functions and things like that, and that's stuff I'd like to bring to U.S. Masters Swimming as well. And a history of, along those lines, developing well-rounded coaches that go just beyond teaching the technical skills or the X's and O's, as it may be in some sports, and having them become well-rounded where they're developing a whole athlete and taking that approach. So with that, I want to thank you for your time, and hopefully I'll get to talk to you guys in person at some point and ask the questions. And if you do have any questions, Claudia certainly has my email and my phone number. I'd be willing to answer those. So with that, I am going to sign off. Thank you very much, and once again, Sam Callan, Colorado Springs, Colorado.